This is a mock session with therapist Jen and client Becky. Yay! Hi Becky, it's so nice to see you again. It's been a couple weeks since our last appointment.
Yeah.
So how have things been? Anything new?
So all of the divorce stuff is it's gone through. It's over with, which has been a long time coming. Because we were separated for a really long time, and it kind of was just kind of like a waiting thing where I felt like I had mourned the marriage, but I hadn't. But it wasn't actually divorce, so I felt like I was having a hard time like couldn't move on quite yet. But I started finding kind of that desire to like maybe date again and stuff. So the divorce has ended, gone through, and I met someone, started kind of dating.
Wow.
And a big fat stress. I just feel very stressed and panicky about all of it. Like I'm finding myself blowing it.
Okay.
Kind of creating problems that might not be there. Just out of, I'm starting to see things, I think through, like I see stuff about my ex and him, and and I don't know if it's really or not, but I'm getting really panicky, and I'm kind of finding myself like digging my heels in on things that at the end of the disagreement or whatever, I'm like, do I even care about that thing? Or am I just digging my heels in to dig my heels in?
Yeah.
And I don't know, I don't want to, like, I know he's not my ex. And I also am really good at just like blowing things.
Yeah. So first of all, you've made a lot of big steps since we met last. I mean, the divorce was like right there, and I think that's amazing that you're in a place where you want to get back out there and kind of see what life has to offer you. But I understand that can feel very scary after being married for such a long time. So your feelings are not unusual, but I know they feel really big when you're in that moment. But I think that's amazing that you are ready to give it a try again. So, and I did want to acknowledge at our last visit, we talked a lot about your divorce, but also a lot about your childhood trauma. And I don't want that to not be a thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it sounds like what's going on with your divorce or post-divorce, your life right now, this is the thing that's kind of front and center.
Yeah. And I'm sure that, I don't know, like since our last session, I think because of that childhood trauma, like I've recognized a lot of maybe beliefs that I gained through that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they like to shine
Yeah.
in all the things that I do.
Yeah.
So I think that since our last session about that, I'm recognizing a lot more how a role that plays in all of the different areas of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it will as I date again. And
yeah. Because when you talked last time about your childhood trauma, just about what a breach of trust that is, that you learned that at a really young age. Yeah. And one of those things that happens with us when we don't trust is we're so afraid of someone breaking that trust that we sabotage. Because we're like, I don't want to feel that feeling again. So that's why when you were talking, I just reflected back to our talk last time and just thought like that might be playing a role in what you're feeling right now. And I wanted to go back to something that you said when you feel like you're putting yourself out there, and you use the term that you feel like you blow it. Like, what does that look like, or what does that mean?
I don't know. It's like even when things are going well and it doesn't feel like there's like any problems, even like I feel like I'm like looking for stuff to maybe validate the fact that I'm not, he doesn't actually want to date me, like you have no idea what you're getting yourself into, kind of a thing. I think especially coming out of a divorce, like I sometimes I feel like I've done a lot of work around some of those feelings of not being enough, of feeling like I gave him all of me and somehow that still wasn't enough for him. Somehow he still needed to like have other outlets for things that were outside of our marriage. When I felt like I was trying to connect and he was not accepting those. And so I think that I sometimes see that in everything that happens in this new one. Like it's so new. It's so new. It's not even anything big, but I feel like since it's my first time, like we were together for 17 years, so it feels like trying to date now after that. I don't know how to do it. Like I've done work on myself, but somehow when somebody else is involved, it feels like that just like goes out the door. Like I feel like I've done a lot of work on my self-confidence and recognizing that I'm enough, and then the minute I start to see just a glimpse of that, or a glimpse of something that he says or does that might be saying you're not enough, or you're not what I want, I immediately am like all over it. And I'm either creating drama in the way of like, well, what does that mean? What do you like? And digging into that, or I'm picking fights so that I think so that he'll end it before I really care.
Yeah.
Because I'm really scared of doing that again, and so I kind of just am really good at creating problems that might not exist, and nobody wants to hang around that.
Well, everything you're saying makes a lot of sense, especially with your childhood history and the hard things that you've been through. So I know this feels big to you, but like how you're feeling right now is very normal. You know, going through a divorce, that's trauma too. There's loss there, there's rejection there, all of those feelings. So it's understandable that you're going to be scared of feeling those feelings again. And one thing about trauma that's important to remember is that trauma happened and the emotions attached to that are very real, but that exact trauma can never happen again. Might be different trauma, but the trauma that you had in your marriage, for example, that doesn't mean you won't have trauma in another relationship, but we tend to attach ourselves to that trauma and those feelings, like those same feelings are going to happen. And that's not necessarily the case. Again, there might be different hard things. There was something interesting you said that made me think of a modality that I'd like you to try when you said that as you're, trying out these new relationships, that you find yourself thinking like, well, why would he want to date me? And I wanted to talk to you about, there's something called cognitive restructuring. And that's basically taking those thoughts that we have and turning them in a different direction and restructuring those thoughts so that they help us and they don't hurt us. So for example, your argument is, well, yeah, why would he want to date me? I'm just going to sabotage this so it will end. So I have this question for you. Like, why would someone want to date you? That's harder to do, but think about it. Think of what you have to offer. Like, why would somebody want to date you?
I think it's a lot harder. It's hard. It's hard for me to, because it's stuff that like I have the most amazing kids. I'm obsessed with them. I love them. And also like when I think about the idea of somebody coming in and being like, oh, I'm going to date this woman that has 5 kids that are still young. Like they're not going to be out of the house anytime soon. It feels like a big ask. And so I think sometimes I almost take on the weight of them too. Like I don't want them to be hurt.
Yeah.
And so I take it on myself, and I have a hard time sometimes separating from that and recognizing that maybe they would hurt, but also maybe it would be a beautiful other relationship. I don't know.
Yeah.
But why would somebody want to date me?
But you already kind of gave a reason, but then you retracted. Did you notice that? So you said, I have amazing kids, right? But then you retracted back from that. So you were starting to reframe cognitively what you were thinking, but that's human nature, that then we want to backtrack from it. So what if someone you were dating, what if what they were thinking was, Becky has amazing kids? How would that feel to you?
Good.
Right.
I mean, I'd like, yeah, I feel like that above anything else would be really, I don't know, it would mean a lot because my kids mean so much to me, that having somebody who loved them and recognized them would mean a lot to me as well.
Yeah. So what if, as part of this cognitive restructuring of looking at something in a different way, instead of assuming that I'm going out with this guy, he's going to see my kids as a burden, what if you tried to flip the switch the other way? And like, wow, this guy is taking me out on a date. He knows I have children and I have amazing children. What if he's excited about me and my amazing children? I mean, they're completely different thoughts on either end of the spectrum. And our brain wants to go to the one that's negative and hard. But what if there was that conscious effort to think the other thought? Is that something you think? I just feel like with your situation, being able to restructure the way that you approach things might help you be able to view dating in a less stressful way and in a more empowering way. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to me that sometimes, like, if we were to do this in a way of like say like a year ago, when we were just getting, like, we were separated and just starting this process, and I was starting to work on myself and my beliefs of myself, like when it's just a solo me, I feel like I can do a lot better with coming up with things that I like about myself or whatever. And then when I bring somebody else into it, I find myself going back a lot to those thought processes that that are pretty negative, and it's a lot harder for me. Like when you were asking me, like, what are some reasons that someone will want to date you? Like if the question was just like, what are some good things about you? I think I could tell you some things. And then when I try to think of it and like, what are some reasons that someone would try to date you? Like immediately my mind goes like, there's none. Like it's hard for me to see it in the dating realm, and I don't know if it's because it's...
Yeah, why is that? Why is it that if it's just you, think about that, like if it's just you would be okay saying, hey, these are good things about me, but yet in the dating environment, you see things so differently? Like, what do you think that makes that so different in your mind?
I don't know. I wonder if it's like, maybe I can control how I treat myself.
Yeah.
And how I react to myself, but I have no control. Like, I lose that control when there's another party involved, and I have to like rely on or like hand over part of my heart and hope that it's taken care of, and not that it's, I don't know, I feel like some of, especially at the end of, well, not even just the end, but like parts of my marriage and even parts of dating before, like I was never, maybe that's part of it too, I was never good at dating.
And define good at dating. What does that mean?
I wasn't good at doing the like cute little game of like, you know, back and forth and give a little and then pull back so that they want more, and all of that kind of stuff. Like I've always just been kind of blunt and like, this is, I like you and I want to like, and I don't see a reason in doing the like, does she like me, doesn't she like me, do I like, I've never really seen a reason in that. And so I've scared, like, even when I was younger, I was the same way, and I scared a lot of people away with just the bluntness of just like, yeah, I like you and I want to date you. And it was like, whoa, like, why does it have to be like this full thing? But I think that's that's one of the things that I like love about myself and struggle with myself the most. It's the way that like, when it comes to emotions of any sort, like I am just very, I feel all the things. And so when I'm happy and when things are going well, like I'm so happy and I feel so happy, but I also feel like the sad parts so deeply, and I fall in love so hard, and I love deep why I'm in love, and I think I struggle with the idea of like, is anyone ever going to love me in the same way I love them?
Okay, I want to circle back a little bit, because in that last little couple minutes, you named some reasons that people would want to date Becky. So let's identify those, because they were very powerful. So can you think like what, the first one that you said, you actually did your own restructuring cognitively, because you talked about, you know, when you felt like you were not good at dating, I heard authenticity. I heard, you know, being a straight shooter or just being straight up with people. And maybe those qualities back when you were young felt a little, you didn't know what to do with it, but as a neutral party here, I look at someone who's dating a little bit older in a demographic of people that probably don't want to play those games anymore. So I feel like that's a good, I mean, what do you think about that? That could be a good reason to want to date Becky, is that she doesn't mess around. She's honest about her feelings. You feel a lot of feelings. You have a capacity to love. What do you think about those as reasons why someone might want to date you?
Yeah, I mean, I think if the roles were switched, that, at least for me, that's something that I would want. I want somebody that is open and willing to be vulnerable in love.
Yeah. And so I guess I like that you switched that role. So how would you feel if you went on a date with someone and they had the same approach you did, but they did it first. Like if they were very honest about their feelings, they had their heart open, ready to love. Like, is that something that you would like?
Yeah, I think so. I think I would probably be nervous. And I would like it.
Yeah.
I don't like not knowing where I stand.
Yeah.
I think I lived too many years of my marriage not knowing where I stood, or not feeling like not feeling seen or heard, or like what I felt was important.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like the idea of being seen.
Yeah.
Like the idea of...
And isn't that interesting that if it's coming from someone else, that's okay to you, but when you're giving it, you feel like it's not. So again, that's something I want you to think about when we talk about restructuring cognitively. Like, you, from all of the things you've told me, have a lot to offer, all of these great qualities, and you can accept it on your own, but yet when there's another party involved, that takes that all away. And I'd like that to be something you focus on as you're dating, to be able to say, wait a minute here, like if someone else were showing me these qualities, I would think they're amazing. Like, why can't I see that in myself?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, recognizing the way you feel, having experienced the trauma that you have, it's normal to have that mistrust and to be scared of getting hurt and all of those things. So it's not taking anything away from that you have reasons why you feel the way you do, but it's being able to change the way you think about things so that you can have the life that you want, instead of letting those things make you sabotage, or, you know what I mean, maybe not allow a relationship to be something that it could be.
Yeah. I think as you're talking about like maybe looking for, like, if somebody else was doing those things, how I would feel about them. I think I'm recognizing that I haven't been thinking about necessarily how I want maybe even how I want somebody to show up for me, or like how I would like a relationship to look, because I'm so concerned about being the right person, that I'm having a hard time finding. And I'm thinking maybe also that recognizing that, like, I need to allow space for the other person to show up, as opposed to assigning reasoning for the ways that they're doing things. Allow some sense of curiosity for why they're behaving that way, or why they, or even allow them, I guess, to tell me why they care or want to be there, as opposed to just telling them that they don't.
Right, and shutting it down.
Yeah, but trust me, you don't really want to be with me, because look at all these problems I have.
And see, you have to switch that around.
So I think, as you were talking about that, I think I'm recognizing that I do a really good job of just assuming the worst, and that it won't go well, and maybe it won't, I guess.
or maybe it will.
Or maybe it will.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, I guess it's not the end of the world. Like, who finds their next person right out of the first person. That's what dating is, I guess. But
and some people do, some people don't. But just as you're moving forward with this dating process, I want to circle back to, again, like I would love for you to be able to say out loud what you bring to the table, but let's not say in dating, like, why would someone want to date you? Like, what are the best parts of Becky? Like, if you were advertising for yourself, if we took all the shame of the world out of like boasting or whatever you want to call it, but if you could advertise for yourself, knowing the best parts of yourself, what would those best parts look like? What would you write if you were doing an advertisement?
it's uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable, but why is it uncomfortable that we can't say, like, tell people like, hey, I'm a good package? We've been trained in our society that we're not supposed to do that, but why not? Like, why can't we say we all come with hard stuff, but we always focus on that, but we also all come with really good stuff? So, like, what are the best parts of Becky? And you've already named some that I will pull out for you if you can't.
I think I'm fun. I like to laugh. I like to try new things and just experience new things with different people, and I laugh a lot. Just in life in general, I really think I went a lot of years without laughing very much, and when I finally allowed myself to laugh again, I realized how much joy it brings me, and I think sometimes it gives other people permission to laugh as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm silly, and I think some of those like maybe oddities about me give other people permission to be a little weird themselves, and it creates some fun moments. Before, I think I love big. I love my people. I feel like I'm a pretty understanding person. Not very judgmental.
You're doing great.
How many of these do I have to do?
As long as they're flowing, let's just keep going. You've got a good list there. I
think I'm a pretty good mix of like adventure and also let's stay home and be lazy. Like I'm comfortable being letting my inner nerd out and just staying home and reading all weekend, but I also love going out and going to concerts and going to, skiing or going to do stuff like that. Like I like adventures, and I'm not very hard to please with activities. Like I just am pretty happy to be along for the ride for the most part.
Well, that's a pretty amazing list. I'm proud of you for doing that. So let's just think about that list that you just made of the greatest parts of yourself. Like, what if we ask that question again? Like, why would someone want to date you? So instead of going straight to, well, I don't know, I can't think of anything. Like, there are a lot of reasons someone would want to date you. You just have to change the way that your brain thinks about it. And it's not going to be overnight like, oh, I'm solved my problem. But I would challenge you for this next week until our next session, especially with dating, before you go on a date, and if you have to like make a physical list, do it. Like, list what are all the reasons why this guy is lucky to be going out with me? Like, what are all the best parts of me that he might get to know if this progresses? So instead of shutting it down and thinking like, oh, finding those bad parts, you've listed some pretty amazing qualities that some guy would be really lucky to be able to have in his life. So again, it's that cognitive restructuring of catching when we have that thought and recognizing that that's not true. Like no one's all bad. There's a lot of good. And then being able to flip it around and restructure it in a way that like, hey, there's a lot of reasons people would want to go out with me. And then recognizing that you're worth what you want in a person as well. So does that sound like something that's kind of a big task, but that's my challenge is before you go on your next date, do you have something coming up?
Yeah, we're supposed to go out this weekend. We're supposed to go snowshoeing, so.
Okay, so what do you think that you'd like to do to kind of change the way you think about that date? What's something you can do before you go?
I guess kind of like you're saying, make a mental list, or maybe even do like there was that video with that little girl in front of the mirror that was like, cool, whatever, she was yelling all these affirmations, and maybe embracing a little bit of some of those affirmations and recognizing, and I think probably more than anything when I get home is when I'm gonna need to do that, so that I don't start to spin when I get home,
right,
and start to look at things and the things I did or said that were dumb, or whatever,
right,
however I might perceive them.
right.
I think that's probably when it will come in handy the most, is recognizing stopping that thought process and maybe looking instead at the good parts, looking for the good parts of the date.
Yeah.
For the things that went well, for the moments that made me laugh, or where we had a good time together.
I like that. And I love the mirror. I hadn't even thought of that. Like, say it in front of a mirror. Like, these are the
I just always think about that when I think of like
right,
saying nice things about yourself. That little girl that was just like, yeah.
I love that, because there's something powerful about saying it out loud while you're looking at yourself, because that brings the reality of it. Like, this person is all of these great things. So I love that. Well, I think I like what we've talked about today. I feel like you've been through a lot of things and you've had a lot of massive changes in your life, but you're also on the cusp of big changes. And again, it's natural to feel nervous and apprehensive, but I really think by just trying to restructure how you look at yourself and other people, just catching yourself again, it's not going to be overnight that all of a sudden, wow, I've learned how to cognitively restructure everything, but it's just, I'm noticing when you have those thoughts that aren't quite true, and trying to look at them in a way that's more realistic. Because actually reality is usually way better than what our brains try to tell us, like 90% of the time. So.
All right.
Okay, well, it's really good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap up today?
No, I can't think of anything. Just set up with the secretary.
Yep,
just
out
same
front,
time.
that will be great.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, take care, Becky. Good
Thank
to see
you so much. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, that was probably a disaster.
No, you did good. I thought you did really good.
I tend to get a little bossy though. Like, I try to like make people say, I'm like, what if you did this? Well, how are you going to do this, Becky? So that was.
No, I thought you did a good job.
Oh, you're nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought it was good.
Well, we did it.
We're done.
So we gotta go write about it, and I guess it doesn't matter if parts were not ideal or whatever, because then I'll have things to write about. Like, oh, I could have this better. But,
Yeah, no, I thought you did a good job.
okay. And like the real therapist in me is like, go, Becky! Like, you have so much value. You have so much to offer the world. Oh. Okay, hooray. Oh, I'm still filming.